Hey everyone, it's Jason McLaren. This is Leadership Loading Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. My guest today is Ryan Sweeney. He's a former Army helicopter officer and military civilian culture gap podcast host, helping veterans find their calling during the transition to the next stage of life. So Ryan, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, so Ryan's all about helping veterans connect with military professionals and vice versa, right? Correct, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really the intent here.
Yeah. And so can you tell us a
Kind
little
of
bit about...
bridge that, like you said, bridge that communication gap.
Yeah, definitely. And, that's what we launched this podcast for, is because, there's obviously some gap there, and a lot of us are using these tools and resources to try to bridge that gap. And I think the more people out there pushing that, then we can kind of close that as we get more into the future. So can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I started off in the reserves when I was in college, enlisted as a petroleum supply specialist, did a year there, and then signed my active duty scholarship through ROTC, and then spent basically almost 10 years to the day to serve on the active side of the house in Army Aviation as an officer, and got the luxury of transitioning out of Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. So, I had great, wonderful 3 years. But when you're from upstate New York and your wife's from Central Texas, and you're going to, one of those two locations, it gets pretty hard to transition from an OCONUS position and taking interviews at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when it's lunchtime on the East Coast or whatever the case is. So it provided certainly one of many challenges for me, but nothing that we all haven't faced, ability to adapt and overcome to still accomplish the mission. And I enjoyed every bit of 10 years and thought I was going to be a lifer, and just things started to change. Got married, wanted to grow a family, wanted to reduce my risks in life, wasn't going to fly anymore, and just decided at the end of the day, after 10 years being told what to do, I thought I was going to have a little bit more control. And they told me the next 5 years are planned for you. And I said, okay, I think I'm going to reassess this situation and get some control back in my life, and decided to leave about a year and a half out, and made the first transition wrong. Within a year, I had already left my first organization for my current organization. And it was, I did everything I thought was right. Took, personality tests. It was aligned with the end state, aligned with my interest, even if the current position wasn't there. It was still a way to get there. And then I just realized I was in retail management. I just realized it wasn't for me. I wasn't willing to do that anymore. So I decided to go ahead and move to an opportunity that I had within my current organization, and that we still support the military, and it was more mission based, aligned with what I did, and I still get to sleep in my own bed at night and don't have to do a whole lot of travel and no deployments. So I feel fulfilled, but at the same time still get some of those reduction in risks that I wanted.
Definitely. I think a lot of people that leave the military before the 20-year mark are looking for that, a little bit better work-life balance, a little bit more risk reduction. So I can definitely feel you on that. I did 7 years myself, and it was all due to a hardship in the family. And so it kind of is a similar mindset, but not exactly. But anyway, moving on. So how can veterans connect with military professionals? What do we need to do to kind of bridge that gap and get into that civilian sector if we need to?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing in my opinion, that you need to do is you really need to take a hard look at yourself, right? And it's what I call backwards planning. Like we're taught in the military, most of us, we backwards plan and spend the most time planning actions on the objective. And to me, that's what you should do for your life. Take as much time as you need to figure out who you are, what's your interest, what motivates you, which kind of the next steps after that, that end state, what are you trying to drive for? And that I say do it very vaguely or generally speaking, because some of it is probably going to change, but it still should be, it still should align with your core values and who you are. And then at that point, we're all in the military, probably familiar with the PACE plan. So you build yourself a couple paths to get to that end state. And if you jump on that route of where you're going, and something changes, or a major crisis event, like COVID, and you get laid off or something, well, then you can jump to another route and kind of pick up and still move along to that end state without necessarily doing a pivot and going somewhere totally in the opposite direction, and then having to retransition, so to speak, or figuring yourself out. So to me, that is the most value added, and that's from my own lesson learned, that retail management just end up not being for me and I realized it after 2 months. And part of the reason I picked it was location, and growth opportunity. And since that location, I moved away from Central Texas, so that moved down the list, and then so did growth opportunity. As I started to grow my family, I was more interested in spending time with my family instead of becoming the next CEO of the organization. So had I taken a step back and realized that's what I was getting at, why I left the military to begin with, then I probably would have made different decisions in the short term. So that is my number one piece of advice when it comes to the military transition.
Yeah, like you kind of touched on one thing about reframing skills. You verbalize a little bit different, but yeah, changing your skills to what you want to do outside rather than just taking whatever the military trained you on and going with that. When we talked about that a couple episodes back, but so let's flip that. How can organizations get the best out of the veteran skills that they're looking for?
Yeah, so I am a big believer in Jim Collins and Good to Great, and it's about finding those good character value people. So, when I talk to veterans, absolutely, I preach to them that, you have to learn the lingo and speak the language and figure out how to network and translate, what you did in the military to civilian terms and how it fits in that industry. Because you are the 1%er, but at the same time, when I talk to organizations, I'm telling you that this individual, might not have 10 out of 10 skills. They might have 7 out of 10 skills, but here's what they bring to the table. And there's some of those other intangibles outside of just soft skills, and that's the veteran community and how close we are connected and willing to support one another. And that veteran within the organization is used to picking up additional duties. So they're used to jumping on problems that aren't being solved, and they're used to trying to bring their buddy and kind of make it a family and build that camaraderie in the team. So they're going to help you pipeline other veteran talent. They're going to help your talent acquisitions team. They're going to help your HR team, your hiring managers, and then they're going to sit on the other side, because that's what I did. I sat on the other side of the table, and I'm not a hiring manager, but whenever a veteran comes in through the door, I'm sitting on one interview or several of them, so people can look at me and go, "What did he say when he said that? What did he mean by that?" Or I can ask the question to try to pry a little bit deeper, to help the civilian team understand it a little more. So that's what veterans bring to the table. They give you that uniqueness that other civilians, I guess, don't or can't when it comes to acquiring that talent. I think that is above and beyond the average person.
Definitely, and I've seen a lot of bigger companies like Amazon moving to that, where they have a military person that's on their lead C-level suite, and it sounds like that's what they do, is kind of just do that interpretation for the lay manager and kind of get them up to date on things. But good deal. So how can our servant leadership skill?
I think that the as we transition, I mean, think about it from your point of view, your perspective. I mean, I've been out for 4 years, and now I'm starting to see the people that I knew that were in there starting to get out, right? So at some point, you start around that 5, maybe 8 year mark, that connection you don't have there anymore. So I think it even goes a little bit above and beyond that. Yes, it's certainly nice for them to have a big veteran program, but it goes above and beyond that. It's a funnel, just like a talent acquisition team needs to do. They need to funnel and pipeline that talent. Well, the only way to pipeline that talent is stay connected with people that are connected. And it's kind of like networking. It's networking and talent acquisitions, but the veteran will do it to help out other veterans, or that's what I've seen most veterans do that. So it's just another layer to doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been out 12 years now, so yeah, I definitely understand the whole difference. And even when I was in to now, the guys that are getting out, what I'm seeing with what they're doing, transitioning into the civilian sector. So how can we use our servant leadership skills we learn in the military to, empower ourselves as individuals?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, say that again. How do we use our servant leader skills to empower ourselves?
Yeah, we talked about servant leadership a couple episodes back, and I just wanted to build off of that. How can we use those skills we learn in the military, servant leaders, to empower ourselves as individuals and our teams, when we get into a position, most likely where we're leading somebody. But, how can we use that to set ourselves up for success?
Yeah, well, I think the how we can do it is that well, you said, I mean, you said it in and of itself. It is empowering, but it's not just blind empowerment. It's the willingness to spend time to grow and train individuals. It's the fact that you're kind of invested in the long haul, and it kind of goes counterintuitive how a lot of organizations run today. They want the 10 out of 10 technical skills aligned, matched. We're going to move you in there because we know you're going to be gone in 3 years. But most veterans and I think most organizations still want a balance. They want some turnover, but they want some experience there within the organization, right? And I think the veterans, I mean, most of us have, we moved every 2, 3, 4 years or whatever the case is. So we're looking for a place to call home. I'm not going to say we're not going to move from an organization to a next, but if we find that right team and that right organization, we're going to stay put more than likely, because most of us value that first and foremost. So therefore we can be trained, we can turn around and invest in other individuals, and if we do that more, people are going to stay within an organization a little bit more, because I think most people want to be empowered, and they want to have the opportunity to prove themselves by nature. So if you give them that, and success within an organization. And I mean, I did it in the military. I couldn't have done it without doing it. I just planted seeds early, small things, and let people take ownership of basic stuff. And then by the end of it, I mean, I had the opportunity to go support President Obama's visit to India, and I didn't have to do a thing. I mean, the team was running on all cylinders. They knew what they needed to do, based on the little guidance that I gave them, because they knew that we had built and established that trust, to do what was right and work within my guidance to accomplish the mission. So yeah, I mean, that stuff takes time though, and I think organizations have to acknowledge that if you want the best out of everybody, you have to give people time to grow and develop other people.
Yeah, and I think we kind of built on that in the episode I was talking about. But yeah, that's all good stuff. So what are you up to now? What are you doing on the civilian side?
So on the civilian side, I mean, it's what kind of launched my View from the Skies podcast. It's I am a production controller and materials planner by name. Working for GE Aviation, making hot section blades and vanes for mostly military aircraft. So, still supporting that community. But at the same time, you know, what I do is like being a battle captain. For those of your listeners out there that have been battle captains while deployed, and it's all influential. I'm not responsible. I'm not a leader anymore, even though I was a leader in the military in terms of direct leadership. But I am a cross-functional leader. I have to work with suppliers. I have to work with vendors. I have to work with our supervisors, and ultimately, I have to answer our customers when it comes to fulfilling their orders. So I manage material throughout the shop, and then kind of be that liaison and that voice of the customer, and make sure their needs are met within within the operational flow within our organization.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that, translating those skills out to the civilian side. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and and it's everything that I said. I mean, still applies. So I worked with our HR team to help pipeline some talent. I'm not too far up the road from Fort Campbell, so I was like, hey, I'm driving down to Fort Campbell today, and I'm sticking my foot in the career skills program or TAP, office, and I'm gonna shake hands and make names, and we're gonna get some people up here, and then I end up building a skills bridge training and development program for our organization to help pipeline some talent, and discuss all those things we talked about, kind of the long-term growth for the business and long-term growth for the individual as well, and incorporated all that, and then just wanted something bigger and better, and then that led me into the podcast. How else can I go out there and help individuals? So I mean, it's exciting because there's no one path to success in the civilian world. We have the opportunity to pave our own road, so to speak, and that's kind of what I'm doing.
Awesome. So where can we find you, and where can we find the podcast?
Yeah, so it's on all the major platforms, but the easiest way to look me up is Ryan Sweeney 315 on LinkedIn. I have there you'll find the links to the Facebook and Instagram, and my blog and all that stuff. You can also go on viewfromtheskies.weebly.com, and there that's my launch page, which will bring you to every my vlog and blog and all that stuff as well. So, but yeah, I mean, look me up on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request. I'll be happy to chat and talk, and for veterans or civilians who are interested in, kind of putting their brand, who want to learn more, and veterans want to help them. I mean, that's ultimately what I'm here to do. Same as you, and that's the great part about all this, Jason. I mean, us veterans kind of coming together to support one another instead of looking at each other as competition. We're all here to articulate what it takes to be a leader in the corporate world, and what it takes to transition out of the military and be a successful veteran.
Definitely, I don't think there's competition in the veteran community. I think it's just collaboration, and there's always going to be veterans coming out of the pipeline that need help. So the more, the merrier.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Ryan. Any closing remarks for the listeners?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just check me out. Like I said, on the View from the Skies, and then don't be. I know with everything going on in the world today, it seems like you might have made the wrong decision, or if you get laid off, that there's no end at the light of the tunnel. But I think now is also the time to really, like I said, no matter where you are in life, take a step back, look at yourself, and just find out where you want to be next, and kind of start painting that vision. And I did it with a dream board a few years ago, and ended up accomplishing 7 out of the 8 dreams on my dream board that I probably wouldn't accomplish otherwise. So that was just my method. But paint that vision for yourself, and don't let anything get in the way, and go out and accomplish it.
Yeah, I know the COVID-19 stuff going on right now. A lot of people are uncertain about what's going on, when we're going back to work, and when we're, if we're going to get laid off and that sort of thing. And but like you said, there's also a lot of opportunity going to come out of this also with the stimulus packages coming out and that sort of thing. So it's just what you make of it and what your goals are. So,
Yep, absolutely.
all right. Well, thanks, Ryan. I'll let you get back to it, and you have a good night.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.